Welcome. Today, we're going to dive deep into the archetype of the tiger and explore its shadow side. The tiger is a powerful representation of strength, courage, and action, but like all energy, it has its challenging aspects. On the darker side, the tiger can get lost in impulsivity, aggression, and pride, risking its balance and even its own survival. Understanding this side is essential for anyone looking to integrate this energy into their life in a healthy and conscious way. And that's why I ask you to stick with me through every detail of this video. Every nuance we'll explore here could offer you new insights into how the tiger archetype might influence your attitudes and decisions. By better understanding this duality between raw strength and balance, you can apply this knowledge to your own personal and spiritual growth. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to hit the like button right now. This not only helps me bring more videos like this, but also makes it possible for others to access this valuable reflection. So, stay with me until the end and absorb every detail. When I think of the tiger archetype, what comes to mind immediately is a vibrant energy, full of strength and determination. The tiger carries within it an inner fire that pushes it to act, to conquer, and to move forward courageously into unknown territories. It doesn't wait, it acts, following its deepest instincts, always ready to face any challenge that crosses its path. This dynamic energy is one of the great beauties of the tiger, but like all powerful forces, it has two sides. The light that the tiger carries, this force of action, can also turn into an uncontrollable fire. When the tiger acts without reflection, its courage can turn into impulsiveness. Its strength can become aggression, and what should be a quest for growth and fulfillment can turn into a series of destructive actions, both for itself and for those around it. This is the shadow side of the tiger archetype, and it's something we must carefully observe. In its shadow side, the tiger can be consumed by the ego. It desires to be in charge, to be seen as strong and invincible. This need for control can lead it to a state of isolation, where loneliness is the price it pays for always wanting to be on top. The tiger's energy, when driven by vanity or arrogance, can push away those who could help it find balance and harmony on its journey. Another aspect of this shadow side is the tiger's difficulty in dealing with its own vulnerability. It hesitates to acknowledge its weaknesses, believing that stopping to reflect, rest, or ask for help might be a sign of failure. But what the tiger often doesn't realize is that true strength comes from the ability to recognize its limits, to know when it's time to step back and recharge its energy. Reflecting on the shadow side of the tiger archetype doesn't mean rejecting this energy, but learning to use it wisely. It's about understanding that the tiger's strength must be balanced with compassion, reflection, and self-awareness. When the tiger integrates these aspects, it becomes a complete leader, capable of acting with courage, but also with discernment. As we expand our awareness of the tiger archetype, we realize that true power lies not just in action, but in the ability to balance the urge to act with the wisdom to stop and reflect. This way, the tiger's fire can guide us without consuming us. When I think about the shadow side of the tiger, I see how its uncontrolled strength can quickly turn into something dangerous. The tiger, who initially acts with courage and determination, can, if unbalanced, fall into the trap of impulsivity. The action that should be firm and conscious can suddenly become an unplanned response, driven only by the heat of the moment. In this state, the courage that was once an admirable quality turns into aggression, a force that doesn't build but destroys. The tiger's inner fire, which should serve to warm, illuminate, and guide, can turn into a devastating flame when it loses its focus. Instead of lighting the way, it begins to burn everything around it. When the tiger lets itself be consumed by this uncontrolled energy, it acts out of anger without considering the impact of its actions. And in this fury, it not only destroys those around it, but also starts to self-destruct, burning through its own resources, vitality, and deepest connections. This loss of balance is dangerous because the tiger doesn't immediately realize what's happening. It's so caught up in its anger and its need for action that it doesn't stop to reflect on the consequences. Aggression takes over, and the clear strategic vision it should have is blurred by the immediate desire to react. And it's at this point that the tiger begins to stray from the path of wisdom, entering a cycle of destruction that can be hard to break. Fordo, when the tiger acts out of anger, it loses the ability to listen to its own intuition. The instinct that once guided it with precision now becomes tangled with uncontrolled emotions, creating confusion and chaos. The one who was meant to be a firm leader turns into a reckless warrior, fighting battles that often don't even need to be fought. And in that fight, the tiger loses its essence, driven by a blind impulse that only leads to more pain. This shadow side of the tiger is not a flaw, but rather a consequence of not knowing how to balance its own strength. The tiger holds within itself the power to both create and destroy, and it is its responsibility to learn how to control that energy so it doesn't consume itself. When the tiger finds this balance, its strength turns into true power, the kind that builds rather than destroys. Reflecting on the shadow side of the tiger, I realize this lesson is valuable for all of us. Learning to balance our own strength and understanding the limits of our inner fire allows us to live more consciously and harmoniously. The tiger, with all its strength and presence, often craves control, the desire to be in the spotlight, to be recognized for its power. It wants to be seen as unbeatable, invulnerable. However, this need for control, fueled by pride, can push it down a dangerous path, one where it begins to distance itself from others, becoming isolated. This pride, which initially seems like a source of power, soon reveals itself to be a trap. In its relentless pursuit of being seen as the strongest, the tiger disconnects from those around it. It avoids showing weakness, believing that depending on others is a sign of vulnerability, and slowly it begins to build a barrier between itself and those who could offer support. This isolation may bring a temporary sense of safety, but it's an illusion. When dominated by ego, the tiger often acts not out of real necessity, but from a constant need for validation. It wants the world to see its strength, to never doubt its capability. And the more it seeks this external approval, the further it drifts from its true essence. It begins to define itself by others' expectations, by the desire to impress, rather than acting in line with its own inner instinct. Over time, this desire to be seen as unbeatable becomes a burden. The tiger starts to realize that despite its outward strength, it feels increasingly alone. Loneliness is the price it pays for maintaining this unshakable image. Those who could bring understanding and support are kept at a distance because the tiger, in its quest for control, won't let anyone get too close. And on this path of loneliness, the tiger often loses itself. What began as a desire to be strong and admired slowly turns into a prison. It's surrounded by walls it built itself, walls erected from pride and the fear of being vulnerable. The ego, once thought to be a source of power, now holds it captive, preventing it from experiencing true connection and support that comes from mutual acceptance. While strength may be admirable, it must be balanced by humility and the ability to open up to others. There is no real strength in the loneliness that ego imposes. True power lies in recognizing our weaknesses, in allowing others into our lives, and in finding strength in connection rather than isolation. The tiger, in its essence, rejects any notion of weakness. To it, the idea of rest or pause sounds like failure. It believes it must always be in motion, always acting, always showing its strength. To stop for the tiger feels like admitting it's not as powerful as it wants to be. And so it pushes forward, ignoring the signs from its body and mind that are asking for a moment of reflection. However, this rejection of vulnerability creates a deep imbalance. By refusing to stop, the tiger disconnects from itself. It becomes trapped in a cycle of continuous action without space for introspection. The truth is that deep down, the tiger fears what it might find if it allows itself to pause. The possibility that it's not as invincible as it believes. But this is a dangerous illusion because true strength doesn't lie in never stopping, but in knowing when it's the right time to pause and look inward. The paradox the tiger fails to see is that, in reality, it's in the pause where it finds its way back to its center. It's in rest and reflection that it can regain its balance, recharge its energy, and realign its path. When the tiger allows itself this introspection, it discovers an internal wisdom that wasn't accessible when it was merely acting on instinct. It learns that vulnerability isn't a sign of weakness but of courage. Admitting that it needs rest is, in fact, a way of recognizing its humanity. And in that recognition, the tiger begins to use its strength more consciously, more strategically. It doesn't always need to be in motion to be powerful. Its true mastery arises when it learns to balance action with pause, strength with reflection. By doing so, it becomes far more efficient and wise in its actions. Reflecting on this makes me realize that we all at some point face this dilemma. Society often pushes us toward constant action, toward endless productivity, as if stopping were a waste of time. But the tiger teaches us that to be truly strong, we need to honor our moments of pause. It's in those moments that we find clarity and renewed strength to move forward in a wiser and more balanced way. By accepting vulnerability and rest, the tiger reconnects with its inner power. It becomes more complete, more aware of its choices, and paradoxically, stronger. This is true strength, the ability to recognize when it's time to move forward and when it's time to stop. Recognizing the shadow side of the tiger archetype is essential for anyone who wishes to live with this energy in a balanced way. The tiger, with all its strength and drive for action, isn't something we should repress or avoid. In fact, its power is what pushes us to achieve and fight for what we want. But if we don't learn to understand its darker aspects, we risk being driven by impulsiveness or aggression, which can be destructive, both to ourselves and others. To integrate the tiger archetype in a healthy way, it's not about suppressing this inner strength, but about learning to channel it with awareness. We need to be able to discern when it's the right time to push forward with intensity and when it's necessary to pull back, pause, and reflect on our actions. The balance between action and introspection is what makes this powerful energy a tool for us rather than a force that controls us. The tiger, when balanced, can act with admirable courage, but this courage isn't blind. It's guided by inner wisdom, a clarity of purpose that can only be achieved when it learns to control the fire burning within. It doesn't act out of anger or ego, but with a sense of compassion, both for itself and for others. And that compassion is what transforms its strength into something constructive rather than destructive. When the tiger finds this balance, it becomes a true leader. Not a leader who imposes its will through brute force, but someone who knows when to act and when to listen, when to move forward, and when to wait. It's strong, but also wise, because it has learned that true leadership doesn't just come from the power to dominate, but from the ability to guide with responsibility and awareness. Reflecting on this helps me understand that when integrating the tiger archetype, the greatest challenge isn't action, but balance. It's easy to be carried away by the intensity of the moment, by the need to prove our strength. But true mastery lies in knowing when to use that strength and, more importantly, when not to use it. This is the path of wisdom, of conscious leadership. When we integrate this archetype consciously, the tiger's energy guides us toward courageous and wise decisions, creating a positive impact on our lives and the lives of those around us. Expanding our awareness of the tiger archetype's duality is a crucial step toward living a more balanced life. The tiger, with its wild and intense energy, teaches us that true strength doesn't lie in acting impulsively, but in the ability to stop, reflect, and look inward. Often, we're led to believe that constant action is the path to success, but the tiger shows us that pause and introspection are just as important. When we learn to balance this duality, we begin to realize that the tiger's inner fire can be both a source of light and a destructive force. If left unchecked, it burns everything around it, including itself. But when the tiger learns to recalibrate that energy, it turns this flame into a beacon that guides with clarity instead of consuming with aggression. This wisdom only comes with the conscious practice of knowing when to act and when to pull back. The tiger teaches us that brute strength alone isn't enough. The courage to face the unknown is important, yes, but true strength comes from the wisdom to know when it's time to withdraw, to give space for the mind and spirit to process what's happening. It's in that moment of pause that we find clarity and direction, that we can adjust our course and move forward with even more focus and determination. This duality between the fire that acts and the fire that illuminates leads us to live with more balance. Recognizing that we're not just made of action gives us the opportunity to reflect on our own limits, to understand that pausing isn't a sign of weakness but of self-awareness. The tiger reminds us that stopping is also a way to move forward, that retreating is also a strategy for survival and growth. By expanding our awareness of this duality, we realize that we don't need to fear the tiger's shadow side. On the contrary, by embracing and understanding it, we're able to use this energy constructively, transforming its destructive impulse into a creative force, and by doing so, we connect with what's most authentic and powerful within ourselves. The tiger, in its essence, guides us toward a balance between strength and wisdom. It teaches us that true mastery doesn't lie only in action, but in knowing when to stop, recalibrate the inner fire, and use it to light the way. This is the key to living more consciously, where our energy not only propels us forward, but also guides us with clarity and purpose. Thank you so much for watching the video until the end. I hope you found valuable insights about the tiger archetype and how it can impact your life. If this content resonated with you, feel free to share it with others who might also benefit from this reflection. Together, we can expand knowledge and bring more balance and awareness to our lives. Feel free to leave your comments, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.